Fandom's Agent Number 2, 1968, a sci-fi and comic book fanzine. Greetings, friends. Today we are looking at Fandom's Agent issue number 2 from 1968. This is a comic book and sci-fi fanzine with art director Jim Van Hollebeek, artists including Masso, Cellini, Saunders, that's Buddy Saunders, Souza, and Wilson, with articles by Larry Herndon, Ian Penman, and possibly Glenn Miller and John Ryan. This was a monthly publication beginning in 1968 out of Peoria, Illinois. You're looking at the cover of Fandom's Agent Number 2, a takeoff of the cover from EC Comics Weird Fantasy number 15 from the early 1950s. Jim Van Hollebeek is the artist. On the inside front cover we have inessential info. That is ad rates, cost of issues, subscriptions, and staff. And then we have on page 3, Ye Old Editorial. They're talking about, of course, the previous issue and how many copies they want to produce per issue. In this one it says subscription total for number 2 should be about 300, which is pretty good. But it says this is still far from our goal of at least 1,000. Man, if you could get 1,000 subscriptions for a fanzine, that is just kicking butt. Then on page 4 we have the Isle of Green's Mean Teen Scene, which is all about British comic books, including monthlies, weeklies, and annuals. And on page 5, this is just a one-page from a comic book called Marvel Man number 349, British publication. Marvel Man and the Siege of Halicorum. And this is rather interesting for all Whitman collectors. It's a rather complete listing of Whitman material, including the big and better little books, paint books, puzzles, and other items to the subject of comics or comic characters that were printed by Whitman Publishing Company from approximately the period of 1930 to 1950. Next up, a nice little article called Fandom's Library by Larry Herndon, where he talks about various books that have been released, including The Swords of Lankhmar, written by Fritz Leiber. And he talks about Leiber's sword and sorcery books, including Fahfrd and the Grey Mouser, which he considers only second to Robert E. Howard's Conan books at the time. And he talks about Star Trek number 2, adapted by James Blish, with some pros and cons about that book. And The Rainbow Affair, Man from Uncle number 13. Then on page 9, Superman, His Real Birth by George Swartz. To present-day readers, the Man of Steel is as common as apple pie, but in 1938, another song was sung. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster invented Superman as high school kids in Cleveland. Jerry created Superman out of thin air. Joe drew him. Their creation, meant for the syndicated newspaper business, was great, except for one thing. The editors shuffled papers and acted bored when the Man of Steel was mentioned. How stupid could newspapers be? Siegel and Shuster didn't give up hopes, thank goodness. There was another alternative, comic magazines. So they shipped Superman off to J.S. Leibowitz, who recognized the potential. The big issue came, Action Comics number 1, June of 1938. The circulation of the comic doubled in a few short months. A nice little history on the beginning of Superman. And on page 10 we have letters to the editor. Oh yes, and the top one of particular interest is from Buddy Saunders from Denton, Texas. And he'll figure into this in a little bit. Keep in mind it is 1968, folks, and a fan's rendition of Captain America. They're talking about this Italian publication which did a story on Academy Con 1966 in New York City. And here's a full-page wanted ad from a Walt Disney fanatic, who would be Jim Van Hollebeek. Here we go. Here's a full-page comics for sale ad. This is from 1968, folks. At that time, they had designated conditions: mint, near mint, very good, good, fair, poor. And here we go with a full-page ad from Buddy Saunders, Lone Star Comics, mycomicshop.com, and creator of the first full-color cover fanzine. I believe it was in 1963, Star-Studded Comics. And I will be covering that fanzine in future videos. Page 16, an advertisement for another fanzine called The Collector. Apparently issue number 10. And then on page 17, here's some more ads for various comics. And on the top, wanted Action Comics numbers 1 through 20 in VG or better condition. Yet more ads for a variety of comics. As you can see, Fantastic Four, Thor, Sergeant Fury, Spider-Man, Tales of Suspense, X-Men, Action Comics, Flash, Famous Monsters. Famous Monsters number 48, 41, 44, 52, 43, 30, 38, all for 50 cents each. And then the 68, 66, 65 yearbooks for 75 cents each. Note here, Fantastic Four issues number 7 through 11 at $3.50 each. X-Men number 1 for $3. Number 2 for $2. And Spider-Man number 4 for $1.75. Attention all Michigan fans. There is now a state newsletter available for all Michigan fans. Issue number 1 of the Michigan Messenger is now on sale. Your ticket to excitement, folks. Gateway Con number 2, St. Louis, June 28th through the 30th. Tickets $2.50. And yet more comic books for sale. For trade, Frazetta Comics is another fanzine called Quantum. Order Quantum number 4 for 35 cents. And some more ads on the left-hand page. And then another British comic book called The Miracle Man. And this particular story is called The Millionaire. It's just one page from the story. And the back cover, a very nice illustration from Wilson, dated 1968. Up, Up, and Away with Fandom's Agent. So there you have it, folks. A good look at Fandom's Agent number 2. A fine science fiction and comic book fanzine produced in 1968. I will be doing more and more videos on fanzines covering science fiction, horror, fantasy, comic books, memorabilia, you name it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, please like and subscribe. Thank you.